I want to ask you a question. Is it worth having children? Lately, I've been seeing this trend of people pushing off their first child to later and later ages. People are waiting sometimes till 30, 40 years old. Now, number one, is that safe? Okay, and we're going to discuss that a little later on in the video. But as well, I mean, why should people have children to begin with? Why push it up to 30, 40? Why just never have children? Is there a point to having children? I'm about to share with you 3 reasons why you shouldn't have children, and that is essentially why so many people delay having children. But I'm going to also show you 3 major reasons why you should have children that will show you that there's a big mistake that people are making about pushing off having children, and if anything, they should be rewinding it to having children a little earlier. But before I get into that, I want to ask you a small favor. If you haven't done it yet, please click the subscribe button right there below, and then the bell that appears after you click the button. This way you will be notified every time I upload a new video. If you really like what you see, please consider becoming one of our Patreons by clicking the link in the description. And of course, sharing is caring, so hit the share button and put it on all your social platforms. Okay, let's begin without further ado. Let's get to the 3 reasons why you shouldn't have children, hence why so many people delay having their first child. Okay, reason number 1 is they drive you nuts. By the way, just as a full disclosure, I'm a father of, thank God, 8 children. And I can tell you that each one will drive you nuts, and they will put white hairs in your beard and in your hair, wherever you have. They can be extremely annoying at times. And of course, you're attached to them. You're their parent. They don't have anybody else. So essentially, you have this somebody who's going to be attached to you for the rest of your life who will annoy you on numerous occasions. So that's reason number 1. Let's go to reason number 2. Reason number 2 is they cost a hell of a lot of money. All right, if you thought that you're living very comfortably, just have a couple children and they'll teach you otherwise. Children cost a lot of money. If you're sending them to private school, then it's like even more money. But even if you're going to public school, they have to be fed, they have trips, they expect certain things from you. So it really takes a big bite out of your financial freedom. The 3rd reason is that children restrict your movement. It's very hard to move around when you have children. So for example, if you and your wife or partner want to go on a trip somewhere and you have 3 children, it's not easy, okay? I can tell you that in my situation, it is very difficult. I mean, since we started having children, I hardly ever was able to go away with my wife anywhere, right? Especially who wants to watch 8 kids? How are you going to find somebody to watch 8 kids? It doesn't happen. So either I go away or she goes away. And it's very restrictive as well because, well, you got to come back and you can't just move, right? I can't just pick up and move countries. I actually moved different countries. I lived in New York, I lived in Australia, I lived in New Zealand, and I live in Israel now. I'm pretty much stuck here. I don't see how I could move. Plane tickets alone for a family of 8 kids plus 2 parents, 10 children, plane tickets alone back to New York where I came from, there goes $12,000, right? Forget about the moving cost and the difficulty and the jobs and it's just very restrictive to have children. And for this reason, many people say, hey, let me enjoy my life. Let me just go and not have to worry about children and have a good time. And this is why people don't have children. Now, I want to discuss a little bit why this is and why people didn't think about this before. Some people argue about contraception. People today have very strong methods of birth control and therefore they use it. Essentially what you're saying is that humans have this urge of sexuality, and because of that, that urge itself leads us to have children, unless, of course, we have a good contraceptive system, which today we have, and then they didn't. But I want to actually share with you a very interesting story that kind of brings out this point. There's a Jewish, I guess, a Jewish legend, if you want to call it that, that there was a group of Kabbalists that they saw the dangers and the horrible things that happen because of people misusing their sexuality, whether it's cheating or whether it's getting into fights, whatever it is. The human urge for sexuality is so powerful and causes a lot of evil. So these Kabbalists prayed to God and they said, please take away the urge for sexuality, the pleasure, the desire for sexuality. The next day, they wake up in the morning and they arrive in the marketplace, and there was not a single egg available in the marketplace. No chickens laid eggs the next day. And they realized their mistake. They realized that if not for the fact that sexuality is a strong desire, there won't be any children. So there's some truth to that. There's some truth to the fact that our urge for sexuality is a human built-in system where we have this need to reproduce. And if we didn't, we wouldn't, because of all the things I explained before about having children. But I want to explain another reason, because in today's Western world, there's still many people who have access to contraception and still have many children. So why is that? Well, there's this, I would call it a disease, but I would say a flaw in the thinking pattern in general Western society. The general Western society looks at life about, experience. Let's experience and enjoy life itself. Okay, let's have a nice steak. Let's have a nice burger. Let's have a nice time. And again, sexuality also kind of became just another activity that you do, right? Oh, you enjoy, because humans have this urge for sexuality, we figured out how to satisfy that urge and take all the pleasure that was meant for reproduction and just use it just for fun to enjoy yourself. And this pattern of life about just enjoy yourself is actually a toxic system. As a matter of fact, the same Western world that everything's just about enjoying yourself, materialism and material physical pleasure, is the same society that has the highest rate of suicide by far. Okay, the numbers of suicide in the free Western world are insane. Why is it that people are killing themselves when in today's modern society, we have access to more physical pleasure and more experiences than anyone ever had before, okay? It's easier to travel. Yes, in the past, people loved traveling, but it was very difficult. You had to go on horse and buggy, you had to walk. Now we have trains, planes, buses. You can go anywhere in the world you want. You could have all sorts of exotic experiences, but for some reason, the same society that has more availability to material pleasure is the one that's killing themselves at a rate far greater than anyone else. Now, I want to point out that the reason for this is because it's a horrible way of looking at life. You need to look at life not about what you could experience, but what you could accomplish. Okay, change those words from experience to accomplish. You came here into this world to do something, to make something happen, right? The more you make happen, the happier you're going to be. That's the real satisfaction inside, when you can look back and you can say, the world has changed because I am here, right? A question I tell everybody should ask himself every day: how will the world be different today because I woke up? If you didn't wake up today, the world should be different. And that is true satisfaction, right? Now, that could be by inventing something new, coming up with a new technology, interacting with people and changing the way they think, because if you change the way other people think, they will change the way other people think, and the world will never be the same. But one of the best ways, and one of the most natural ways that you can make sure the world will never be the same, is by having children. And you have a human need to have children, not just because it feels good, not good, just because it uh, gives continuity to humanity, but you have a physical need to have children because deep inside, that is how you know you can leave your biggest mark. You leave people, not just an idea that has nothing really connected to you. It's just an idea essentially is just a different pattern of thought, right? Music, a technology. Yeah, well, you figured it out before somebody else, but is that really you? Whereas when you reproduce, you make a child who can then have children, who can then have children. And that's why I actually have a rabbi that I worked for once, actually said a very important thing to me once. He said that through all of his years working as a clergy member, he's heard numerous people complain that they had too few children, right? They hit an age, a woman hits an age of menopause, she can't have children anymore. A man gets a little too old, he's like, I can't have either his partner is too old or he feels he doesn't have the strength to have a child. He's like, I should have had more children. He never encountered somebody who felt that they had too few children. So people regret not having enough. People don't regret having too many. And the reason for that is that each child you had will add an inseparable part of you. It will give you an accomplishment that you will feel will go on forever, and it's totally connected with you personally. It's not just, it's a physical piece of you that now is going to live on past your life. Hopefully they will have children, and they will have children, and forever and ever you will have changed this world forever. And that is important, right? There was a rabbi that was once asked, why do you have so many children? And the rabbi asked his pupil, he says, how many children do you have? And the person answered, two. And the rabbi said, how much are they worth to you? He said, they're each worth $1 million. And the rabbi says, don't you want a few more million? And I like this comparison because many people would love to have $1 million, right? But you know what? People work to get that $1 million. Most situations, people who have $1 million didn't win the lottery. They worked hard. And when they look back, they'll say, yes, I'm happy I worked hard because I got the $1 million. But yet there's many people that see a good plan, a business plan that where they could make $1 million and they don't do it. They don't do it because they don't want the trouble. They know that it's going to take, it's going to take effort and it's more work and more work and more work and responsibility. But if you think about it, that's children as well. Yes, children they're hard and they're going to give you a responsibility, but you're limited to how many children you have. And if you could have 10 children, you should have 10 children. If you can have 15 children, have 15 children. I know you're saying poor woman has to go through so many pregnancies. In my personal situation, I don't know if my wife is going to like me sharing this, but in my personal situation, my wife is pushing to have the more children, not me, right? She's the one that wants more. She's the one that had, finished 8 pregnancies already and had 8 children, right? And she's the one that says, yes, I want more children, right? Many women make the mistake of waiting until they're 35 when they can only have 1 or 2 children, and then they regret it. They come back and they hit menopause and like, can't have more children. I just had 2 children, right? Many women will start early in their 20s and they'll have 1 or 2 children and then they'll say, okay, I quit. In some cases, it's the man's fault, I have to admit. In some cases, it's the man's fault because in today's day and age with the Western society, men are not committing the same way they used to. And we have a very high divorce rate where so women don't want to be stuck, and I don't blame them. Very difficult to be stuck with many children. But that's the man's fault. The man should be willing to stick by whoever it is that they have their children with so that they can feel comfortable to having more children, because every child that you have is going to add to your life, even though it's going to be difficult, even though it's going to cost a lot, even though it's going to be restrictive. So essentially what I'm trying to tell you is that anybody that I know that actually made the decision to have a child never regretted it afterwards. I could be wrong. If I am wrong in your situation, put it in your comment. I've never seen a situation where somebody says, I would have rather not have that child. The only thing is beforehand, it sounds scary. So yes, the before may sound scary, but it's a false fear. if you do it, you'll realize that that is what you would have preferred all the time. Hold on just one second. Okay, so essentially the reasons to have children is to have a real meaning because you're making a real difference. Obviously, there's a reason from a godly perspective. The first commandment to Adam in the Bible is to be fruitful and multiply, to have children. God is actually telling you that. And another reason is insurance. I've been to old age homes where there's these old people who are all alone. They either have no children, they have one or two children. How often could one or two children visit them, right? Children are they're a piece of your flesh and blood. They are what gives you the best guarantee to have somebody by your side. You can have the best pension fund, you can have the most money in the world. It doesn't necessarily mean there's something missing if you don't have family around. And that's very important to have in general, although that's not necessarily why you should have children, so that you have an insurance plan. But if you consider all the other reasons, it's worth much more to have children than not. I also want to mention that many women may not know this, but go ask your doctor and they'll probably confirm this for you, is that medical science essentially says that it's best to have your first child before the age of 28. If you have your first child after 28, usually there's complications and difficulties, etc. Whereas if you had your first child prior to 28, very often it's much easier to have children afterwards. And again, I'm not a doctor, but you're welcome to try to confirm this with a doctor. But what I would suggest is that if you're at a younger age and you have the right partner and you have the confidence, you shouldn't be waiting. And I don't think you're going to regret it. And here's the comments. Let's see if anybody regrets it. Anybody out there regrets having children? Put it in the comments and let's discuss it. Hope to see you again. Once again, if you haven't done it yet, please hit the button down there, subscribe, and the bell that will appear afterwards. This way, you will always be notified when I upload a new video. As well, please hit the share button and share this with all your friends. And once again, if you have any comments or if you want to yell at me, it's fine. Right there in the comments, would love to hear what you have to say. And last but not least, if you really like what I say and you want to help us enhance our video quality and spread our message to a much larger audience, please click the Patreon button and choose to be one of our Patreons. Love you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.